Hey, Dave County with HeadGames Motorworks. Today we're going to discuss an Audi Daza head. It made like 1,200 horsepower and it's back for a refresh. Let's check it out. This Daza got the best we got from HeadGames. It is a CNC port, and then we put some stock size Ferrea valves in it, and also a GSC Beehive spring kit. And you can find all that pricing on headgamesmotorworks.com. I'm going to put a link in the description so it's easy to find for you. A little backstory, customer hits me up. They want to put a camshaft in this Daza, and he wanted to make sure that the lift was okay for the valve spring that we installed. So you can tell that you're dealing with a very bright shop. They know that just because it's built for your car, that everything doesn't just bolt together. You actually have to know these measurements. So I learned what kind of power this thing was making, and I said, man, you really should send this thing in because we should check it out before you do that. Also, because there might be distance to coil bind issues. So he sent it in, and I'm going to show you. I have to say, I'm really happy with the way it turned out because it said this thing makes like 1,200, and you can see all of the valve seats. They look really decent. There wasn't much beating up. Sometimes you can see that underneath the valve seat, like if it was valve floating really hard, it would beat up the valve seat. Now, it did beat it up, but it's not that bad. And for the jam that it makes, in these kind of instances, you kind of expect some kind of damage. Now, this car has been gone or this head's been gone for 2 years, and you would expect to see something at that power level with a 5-cylinder to have some kind of issues, but they're very minimal. Daza has a rocker with a lifter that goes inside here. It's almost like it's a Type 2 finger follower, and you could figure like a Mitsubishi, all those. So the Lamborghinis, all the Audis, they all have this type of valve train, except for usually you see the cam journals, but you only have the 2, and it has like a case that goes on top here. I gotta show you guys the camshaft of this thing. It is really wild. So you can see the lobes and how this is a very tricky cam, I'm sure, to make. If you're going to make it aftermarket, I'm sure they would get rid of some of this stuff. You'd probably have to, because there's no way like the lobe comes in and out just right here, and there's a lot like scallops and kind of crazy stuff going on here. I just thought it was cool for you guys to see it. Look at here. I've seen these things break, and they're very expensive, and they break because of valve float, because people put in the wrong valve spring. Well, actually, it was the only valve spring available for it. There's only a couple of them, and you can see this one is looking good. But he's going to replace this with another camshaft, and that's why it's here. So when we got involved in the Daza, part of that, the problem we were not involved is because I saw the valve springs that were available, and they weren't going to handle the power that these things put out. So if you have one that makes, I would say, in excess of 800, you're kind of playing with fire with most of the valve springs that are available. So I linked up with GSC Power Division. I said, man, this is a combination, or this is a genre that really needs a good valve spring for it. And man, they delivered. And this is the valve spring they came up with. Now, this is actually the same valve spring that they use in the S58 and the B58 program. So it's proven to make power, and they just had to make a retainer so it would fit the Audi. And you can see here on the back side of the retainers, you don't see any. There's like no wear at all. I really like that. So it's been gone for a couple years, so I really like to see when parts come back, and you can tell things are somewhat happy, even though it's making a lot of jam. You would expect to see some kind of carnage, and it's really to a minimum. If you look at the valve, this is where you can really see it is not completely happy because it did have some valve flow. Now, this could also be if the guy's going on a 2-step, or using launch control. There's a lot of things. You could be that one of them guys that does like a lot of flame throwing, and you can see that the valve has like a little ledge right here, right where the 45-degree angle, right where it seals to, and that's really why I wanted to see it. Because if you were just to put springs on this, the problem is that it's not going to set up at the correct height, because this indentation although it'll seal because it's beating into the valve seat, it is not the right height. Same thing on the exhaust. You see it's not as bad. I've put a lot of valve float stuff on this channel because I want you guys to see what it looks like, and this is not that bad. This is a reface, and it'll be good to go. But you can see how there's like a little bit of a ledge here from it just beating in, and I would take it for the power it's making, and the valve springs work really, really well. So when the guy came to me and said that he wanted to change valve springs, I was already apprehensive because of my experiences with other valve springs. As I said, I've seen some carnage, and I didn't want to be a part of that. And this thing makes some power. He's trying to turn it up. Actually, he wants to make 1400 with it. And if you're making 1400 and you go to a lesser spring to fit a camshaft in it because you want to put lift in it, I don't see where the advantages are. I just don't see it. So he sent the spring, and he sent, let me show you. So this is the GSC spring that we've been using, and this is the spring that they want to use. I'm going to leave names out of this, but you can see that the spring that they want to use is a little taller, and the wire diameter, if you can see it on the, I'm not going to try to measure it for you guys here, but you should be able to see that the wire diameter is a little smaller on this one. It's a little taller, and let's see if it works. So we're going to go on a Buxton spring tester. I'm going to test them out. The new cam has 11.5 millimeters of lift. I said we were concerned about coil bind. I will show you now. All right, immediately we're having an issue with our Buxton spring tester. It is not reading the correct pressures. I should say all the pressures read low, but the distance to coil bind and stuff. So you're still going to be able to you're still going to get to see the difference in the spring. It still measures the spring. It's just a little off on the pressure. So let me show you. So this is the GSC spring. You can see we're 73 pounds in the seat. We're 178 open. This should be like 100 pounds in the seat and 220 something open. But the distance to coil bind is important here. So we're 51 thousandths away from coil bind. I would roll with that. I like anything above 40 thousandths. I think we're good. So this head could work. Now, the most important part we need to pay attention to here is the spring rate. The spring rate is going to help us dictate what kind of RPM we're going to run. Now, the new spring that they wanted to use, and so you'll see here that it's a very similar spring. So we're 81 pounds on the seat, 162 open. We're the same distance to coil bind. But you notice how the spring rate is way lower. So what that means is now we're going to have the same pressures, and a lot of people think, well, that makes it equal. It having the lowest spring rate of those two springs means that we're not going to be able to run more RPM. And when you get a camshaft, you're adding duration, and adding duration, you're going to run more RPM. And this is saying that no, you can't really do that. You could run the same amount of boost, but you're not going to be able to run any more RPM. So really, what is the advantage there? I don't see one. So in this particular instance, I actually got overruled by the tuner. Now, I don't know what a tuner knows about valve springs. I don't think that you should ever, this is just a public service announcement. If you're dealing with a good cylinder head guy, I would never go with the guy who doesn't install this stuff every day. I would never tell your tuner to run more timing or less timing. I wouldn't tell him to put more fuel into the map. I would never talk about things that I don't know about. And I think that this instance, the guy did it. Now, I get that they wanted to pair the spring with the camshaft, and but I think that it's only going to do is going to get excited when they put it at the same RPM or more, and the rocker could throw it. It's a potential for a situation that we really didn't want to deal with. All right, short and sweet. We're out of here. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. Know that these Daza heads, if you guys have a shop and you're doing Dazas, we can do these private label. We can do them for you. And we have a proper valve train package that could help you do whatever you want to do. You want to make 1,1400 horsepower, we got you. So be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. Love to hear from you. Toodles.